everyone. I hope you had a good break to loosen yourselves up for the final session. I'm Nantini and this is Ellison, and together we'll be chairing the marine session. Just a little bit about ourselves. I graduated from Life Sciences right here in NUS and then went on to join the National Parks Board in managing a group of nature parks. Some things I do daily is like surveying the wildlife in the parks and also developing new parks that help to enhance our urban biodiversity.
And I'm Alison. I'm a third-year PhD student in NUS. I work on mangrove genetics, but don't kick me out yet. The genetics that I work on relates to ecology. I study the genetic structure of mangrove species, tree species, and focusing on Malay Peninsula. So this session we'll have 6 talks, and the whole 6 presentation covers a wide range of marine habitats, from intertidal to mangrove to coral. We also have different aspects of conservation. We'll be having an overview of the marine biodiversity, followed by involvement projects and research projects. And more importantly, we'll be hearing from a very diverse group of speakers. We have representatives from government, from research, and also from the public.
Yes, so Singaporeans have been continuously encouraged to be active citizens and go out there and be involved in the community. So our first 2 talks are actually going to give you 2 more opportunities to be involved environmentally. First up, we have the Comprehensive Marine Biodiversity Survey, affectionately known as the Mega Marine Survey. It is a 3-year project that was started last December. And more than sharing with us the interesting findings, Jonathan is actually going to share with us how extensively volunteers are involved in this project. Jonathan, please.
When Jonathan sets up, just a brief introduction about him. Jonathan is a graduate from NUS and he has been working with NParks for 2 years now. He joined the National Biodiversity Center a year ago, and he has been working with the Mega Marine Survey. Jonathan mentioned that he has received very encouraging response from the volunteers, and I'll hand the floor to Jonathan now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks for the introduction. So as mentioned, a large part of my work in NParks involves handling the comprehensive Marine Biodiversity Survey, or the Mega Marine Survey. So as you can see, the title for this topic is Getting Muddy for Nature. But just in case everyone thinks that the Mega Marine Survey is all about work in the mud, I would just like to introduce a bit more about the Mega Marine Survey, because not all we do will be about the mud. So the Mega Marine Survey is a national project to conduct a stocktake of Singapore's marine biodiversity. In this project, we'll be going to all of Singapore's marine habitats ranging from our mangrove areas, our mud flats, our rocky shores, our sandy shores, our intertidal and subtidal coral reefs, and even the seabed will be surveyed. So all of the marine life that we see, that we observe in our surveys, will be documented. So this project represents a first in Singapore's history. This project is unprecedented in scale and scope because we're going across all the different habitats that we have. And also, we're not only focusing on any one particular taxon, but on everything that we can see. This entire operation is led by the National Parks Board in partnership with the National University of Singapore, in particular TMSI. So in November 2010, the mudflat component of the Mega Marine Survey was launched. So since November last year, we've been going to many mudflat locations around Singapore, and the other habitats will be surveyed very soon. So it's not just about mud, but many other things as well. So this map shows most of Singapore's marine habitats, and for the Mega Marine Survey, we'll be going to most, if not all of them, even the restricted areas in Pulau Tekong and on the live-firing islands in the south. Apart from what I've mentioned, the different habitats that we'll be surveying, there's also a group of very enthusiastic bird watchers known as the Singapore Pelagics. Suburaj, I think he's in the audience today, he's part of it as well. So what they've been doing is every single month they go on their boat rides, their boat trips all around Singapore's waters, to places as far as the channel between Indonesia and Singapore to document the seabird life, seabird diversity in Singapore. So far they've gotten very good results and very good pictures like this of a skua chasing a tern. So apart from all these nice photos, they have actually helped us to document 2 new records of skuas in Singapore. So they'll be going on further trips, and hopefully more of such good information can be brought forward to the Mega Marine Survey. So community effort is vital to the success of the Mega Marine Survey. Most, if not all, of the information that we gather in the survey is done so by the volunteers themselves. Currently, we have more than 300 volunteers who have signed up for the survey, and every single day we are seeing an increase in the number of volunteers. And we want to further encourage this community effort, this volunteer effort. Apart from the volunteers, we have corporate sponsors coming in support of the survey as well. We have Shell Eastern Petroleum, who have very kindly contributed $300,000 towards the survey. The Care for Nature Trust Fund has also contributed $250,000. We have also academic institutions coming in, schools such as Hwa Chong Institution. Some of their students have been involved in our surveys, and a few of the enthusiastic ones have even embarked on side projects of their own. So the information that they gather from their projects can also contribute to the Mega Marine Survey. Students from NTU NIE's Natural Sciences and Science Education program have also come aboard in their own individual projects. So whatever the information, whatever data they collect will be used in the Mega Marine Survey as well. So for each location that we go to, we are joined by about 20 volunteers, and these volunteers come from a wide range of backgrounds. We have students as young as 14 years old to retirees in their 60s, and these people can be very experienced nature guides, nature leaders, or they could be just people who are interested to find out more about Singapore's natural heritage. So we welcome all kinds of people. In the field, all of us will be given a set of these very simple tools: a simple plastic pail, kitchen sieve, spades, spoons, and forceps. So what we do is we dig through the mud, and we collect the mud, and then we sieve the mud through water. So once all the mud has been washed off, whatever organism that remains behind will be collected and identified. This is just a picture of one of our survey sessions in Pulau Ubin. Alright, so from this you can see the conditions that we face in the field. If you can see, some of the volunteers are actually waist deep in mud. In this particular location, the mud is particularly soft, sticky, and it sucks you in. So yeah, so it's actually quite hard work, especially with the sun. Another picture of the conditions we face. This, of course, is Dr. Tan Koh Siang, the principal investigator for the Mega Marine Survey. So it is so difficult to walk through the mud, especially when it's so deep and it's so thick. Some of our volunteers have come up with very ingenious ways of traveling through the mud, right? As you can see in this photo. I don't know whether you are in the audience today, but you have decided to lie on your back and roll towards your destination. Not very recommended, but it works for her. Apart from digging through the mud, a few of us will also be looking at the fish diversity at the sites that we go to, using nets like this. So it covers a whole wide range of different taxon for our surveys. All the specimens that we collect, if they cannot be identified in the field, they will be brought to the labs to be identified. So our volunteers have also joined us for this. Right? You don't need to be specially trained. Anybody can do this because we have people who guide you in the labs. So these lab sessions, they happen in St. John's Island in TMSI's facilities. So we have done at least 14 mudflat surveys so far, and we have collected many specimens. We have identified at least 50 species, and there are many more yet to be identified species, and of these many more, many of them could potentially be new records of Singapore or even new species. Just some of the very common organisms that we encounter in the mudflats that we go to. Polychaete worms. With the naked eye, they all look the same, but under the microscope, they all look very different. Another very commonly encountered group of animals that we see in our surveys is bivalves. And in this picture, they're all yet to be determined, so they could potentially be new records or new species. Undetermined species of sea anemone. Some people nickname this particular one Bill. we have one specimen of an unidentified octopus found on Pulau Ubin. We have collected at least 4 different species of these snapping shrimps, right? And most of them have not been identified yet. So they could very well be new species or new records as well. And the most exciting find of all is of this fish, this particular goby. Right? It's been determined to be a new species, and it could potentially be a new genus altogether. And thanks to Zihan who did this work. So again, I want to emphasize that community effort is vital to the success of this survey. The protection and preservation of Singapore's natural heritage does not just lie within the hand of any one individual or any one organization, but with everybody who calls Singapore home, right? So we want to have each volunteer as an ambassador of our natural heritage. And then when a volunteer goes out there to the field for our surveys, we want them to bring home to their homes, to their workplace, to their friends, the message of our natural heritage. We want them to spread this awareness. So hopefully, when they spread this awareness to other people, to the people around them, the people around them may be excited enough to come and join us. And when they come and join us, hopefully they can spread this awareness further, right? So awareness is a start. Awareness may lead to appreciation of our natural heritage, and appreciation probably can lead to action of the protection of our natural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone out there who would like to try rolling on mud, you know who to call. It's Jonathan from NBC. The next project that's going to be presented is also largely community-based. It's YKids coming up to present about our first offshore landfill, Pulau Semakau, and how volunteers help to increase education and conservation there.
Now, YKid is also a graduate from NUS. He has been working with the Raffles Museum for 1 year now. He's in the education unit, and the project that he will be presenting to us is the Semakau project. And by going to the Semakau project, he has been to Semakau for about 20 times now, while some of us haven't stepped foot on the island itself yet. So I'll pass it on to YKid to present to you Project Semakau.
Hello. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm YKid. And today I'm supposed to represent the education unit of Raffles Museum. What I'll be talking about is this project that we have been doing for about 3 years now. It's a bit similar to what Jonathan's Mega Marine project is. We are in our 3rd year. It's called Project Semakau. Now, for those who don't quite know what it's about, Siva was complaining yesterday. He was asking, like, what is it actually, right? So today I'm going to explain to you what it is. Now, it is a community-based conservation project. Our main objective is basically, like Jonathan, to collect biodiversity data at Pulau Semakau. It is initiated by the museum, supported by HSBC as well as NEA. Our main aim is to promote Semakau not just as a nature education site, but also as a potential site for conservation, right? Now, I mentioned Semakau. Some of you might not even know where it is exactly. What you're looking at here, right, is a satellite map of the Semakau landfill. This landfill was built in the year 1999. It is Singapore's first ever offshore landfill, and it connects what was originally 2 different islands. On the left side is actually what was originally Pulau Semakau, and on the right, okay, that's Pulau Saking. In the center, where it's encircled by this rock bun, right, that's the landfill itself. It's a sea area that is going to be filled up with our ashes of our garbage. The focus is that part on the left. Why do we choose Semakau as our target? It's because it has a really, really diverse ecosystem over there. Okay. Now, on the left-hand corner up there, it's actually an intertidal map, okay, done by Yi Kang. Each color on the map actually represents a different type of ecosystem. And some of the examples you can see here in the pictures. Okay. over there, this one is actually the coral reef area and coral area. We also have seagrass meadow on Semakau, coastal forest, secondary forest, mangrove forest, and grassland. Now grasslands form on Semakau because the landfill gets filled up and then it's topped up with another 30 cm of good soil, and this is what eventually, you know, develops after it's being filled up. It's good to note also that Semakau has one of the largest patches of seagrass as well as natural mangrove in Singapore. What you see over here, this picture, is actually a replanted mangrove patch. When the landfill was built, parts of the original mangrove was actually destroyed. So this is NEA's effort in actually replanting about 400,000 seedlings, and that's why you see them as quite uniform here. Okay, it's actually replanted. So now we know actually there's a lot of ecosystem there. It's very diverse, and there's a potential for a lot of things being found there. So our main interest is actually what's there, what's the biodiversity there. And to know that, we actually have to conduct surveys, and we are aiming at, we're quite ambitious. We wanted it to be having a lot of data set, okay? Sorry. Okay, large data set. To do this, like any research project, it hinges on two main factors. First is time, second is manpower. And unlike the usual research method, where it's really, really limited in terms of manpower, you only get a few people around, we enlist the help from volunteers so that we maximize on the manpower part. Okay, so our volunteers, who are they? Where do they come from? They can be anyone among the community. They don't necessarily have to have the scientific background. What we do, once they join our project, we train them. Okay, so we teach them how to ID species. Over there, up there is actually a crab workshop. So the volunteers are actually looking at how JC over there is explaining about crabs. Okay, we also teach them the different ways to actually conduct surveys, right? So the different methods that we use for this project includes these few things here. The first type is what we call hunting seeking. It's a term that is coined by us. It basically means dividing the intertidal area into different belts, and then each belt is surveyed by one or two volunteers. They will record down the different types of organisms found on that belt. The second survey that we do is the seagrass survey. We focus on the seagrass meadow. What we did was quadrant sampling. We look at algae cover, seagrass cover, and seagrass biomass. At certain points in time, we also focus on group-specific organisms. For example, fishes, crabs, shrimps, and the different methods that we use are like cast nets, seine nets, and over there you see Peter teaching our volunteer to use the Yavi pump. Okay, he wants to look at crabs. Yeah. Okay. So all these sum up after 3 years, right? We can really see the strength in numbers. It shows in our results. We have involved more than 300 volunteers so far, and we have done about 40 field trips, and we have collected more than 12,000 data points. And by data point, I mean over here, it's one row in this table. It represents one species found in one type of habitat along one belt for one survey, right? So that's up to 12,000 points. Okay, some of the interesting things that we find so far, just to share with you guys, we have new records for Singapore. That means these things have not been recorded in Singapore before, and we find them in Semakau. Okay, some of them that is worth highlighting is the mud lobster there. We found a new record for a species of mud lobster. So far that tops it up to 5 species for Singapore, right? We also have sentinel crabs, of course, and intertidal spider. Besides new records for Singapore, on Semakau itself, there are a lot of new records, things that were not recorded from Semakau. They can range from sea stars to cowries, a lot of mollusks, okay, cucumbers, sea cucumbers, I mean, and sea anemones too, right? Okay. We also have many rare species. By rare, I mean it's rare in Singapore, but we see a lot of them on Semakau. To highlight a few, we have a few individuals of green turtle spotted among the shores of Semakau. We also have a lot of rare plants, and these 3 over here that you see are all critically endangered, listed in the red list of Singapore, right? And the one that I want to highlight is actually up there, Api-api jambu. Semakau actually has one of the largest patches of Avicennia marina around in Singapore. And yeah, more rare species. We have a few sightings of the short-pit viper, 2 sightings. Yellow-lipped sea crate, great-billed heron, a lot of them over there. Okay. Now, among the rare species, we also find it very encouraging because we see huge abundance, and this shows that they are really in healthy populations. And the one I'd like to highlight is over here, the very charismatic knobbly sea star. Okay, that's the logo that we use for Semakau, Project Semakau. We frequently see them not just in the dozens, but sometimes it can even reach the hundreds. So very healthy population over there. Okay. Now, even for common species on Semakau, we find a lot of egg-laying individuals frequently, also showing to us that it's actually quite healthy. Over here, you see a noble volute, okay, laying eggs. So all in all, okay, as a summary, we're still counting actually. We have a lot of unidentified species, like what Jonathan had also. Okay, it's still counting. We have recorded about more than 800 species of organisms on Semakau. That's a lot. Okay, and this is the breakdown of the different types of phyla. So what does this all mean? We have rich species count. We also have a lot of rare species, and a lot of them are in high abundance. So this shows that Semakau has this really diverse collection of animals and plants and different types of organisms, and it's really worth conserving. So we need to get this message out, let people know. There's no point just knowing it ourselves and keeping it to ourselves. So what's the next step? Right? We share the love. Under this project also, we have free intertidal walks for secondary school. Over the 3 years we have involved... Right, okay, I still have 1 more minute, thank goodness. Okay, yeah, we have involved around 39 schools, we have 29 walks, and we have benefited more than 1,700 students. Okay, we also share our knowledge. The things that we found on Semakau, we publish it as scientific articles. Over there you can see the 2 articles that we have published recently. One is on mollusks and another one is on plants. We also have publications, 2 new ones this year, to let the general public know more about Semakau. In fact, this one over here is actually sold out there today. Sarah just told me that it's selling out quite fast, quite good business there. If you want to grab one, you can get it from her later. Now, besides the research part and the education part of this project, what we're really encouraged about is actually the ripple effect. Among the volunteers that have joined our project, oh dear. Okay, I'm going to be fast. Okay, among the volunteers that have joined our project, we have a lot that went on their own. They got inspired and they started their own effort to help nature. Okay, we have our youngest volunteer who started off being like totally little interest in bio, and she went on being a nature enthusiast. We also have another undergrad who chose life science as her major, partially because of her involvement. We have teachers who started eco gardens in their school. We also have bank staff who went on from being just helping out with surveys to being a nature guide too. So all these actually point to community-based project can work, and Semakau is actually quite a good model because of all these reasons. Education is edified. Okay, we teach them. They also teach the community. Research efficiency is increased. A lot of data points collected within a short span of time. Sense of ownership. The community gets involved. It's not something that just scientists do only. Okay, the community can do some scientific research as well. Science is demystified because of getting involved and keeping up to date with the whole project. It's not something foreign anymore. You can actually understand science too. The community can get involved and understand it. So one last message. Because of all the diversity that we see Semakau having a really great potential to be conserved. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Waikit. So now all of us know what Project Semakau is, right? So after hearing about 2 major surveys, let's dive deeper into a very charismatic group of marine organisms, the corals. So Singapore, despite being a little red dot, despite having rapid development for the past 100 years, still has an astonishing level of coral diversity. As Ria coined it just now, Singapore is a city in a reef, and the Marine Lab in NUS has done a lot of coral research. Karen here will present to us some of it.
Yeah, Karen is actually with the Marine Bio Lab in NUS and also a regional coordinator for Southeast Asia in the International Coral Reef Action Network. Karen.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm here representing the Marine Bio Lab, and it's really nice to see we have a lot of the Marine Bio Lab. My colleagues are here, so some of the work I'm presenting, the work that they have done, just to share with you a bit of the kind of diversity we have in Singapore in terms of corals and the work that we are doing. So I'm going to start with a bit of background because not everyone might know what coral reefs are, where they are. So I borrowed this map from Nature Society, so thank you for this. So this is a map of Singapore in the 50s, and if you look at the blue section, that's where our coral reefs were. So you have reefs on the mainland of Singapore all the way to the southern islands, and as you can see, all the reefs were situated in the southwestern side of Singapore. We never had reefs along the east coast, so we can't say that we lost reefs on that area. So they have been more or less situated here. By 2002, you can see the blue spots have gone down. We lost almost all of our mainland coral reef except a small patch that's here at Labrador. We've lost a big patch that's here in Jurong Island, some patch here at Pulau Sudong. Moving 10 years ahead, and this is a map for Singapore in 2000, we have reefs mostly situated within our southern islands. The reason why it's just fringing now, a lot of the areas have been extended almost to the edge of the reef. And if you remember, the guest of honor mentioned this morning that military islands have this protection status. So you find that some of our best reefs are actually situated within the live firing area. We have our richest coral reef within this area here. And thanks to this area here, I think the diversity of Singapore's reefs has been maintained. So for people, a lot of people always ask, you mean we have reefs in Singapore? But really, it's true, good grief, we do have reefs. And I know this was supposed to be the title of the talk, but people found it a bit corny, so I had to, change it. But I still wanted to keep it inside here. But we do have reefs, and we do have very, very diverse reefs. So the work that we do in the Marine Bio Lab is to understand the system, and in understanding it, hopefully we could find solutions, tools to help preserve what we have. And there isn't enough time to go through everything we have done. So what I'm going to do is just focus on 3 areas of research that we do in our lab. And the first one is really interesting. It's sex in the sea. This is coral reproduction work, and since 2002, the Marine Bio Lab has been going out almost every year to document the mass coral spawning event that happens in Singapore. Of course, this work all started with PhD research of one of our colleagues, Dr. James Guest, and thankfully he's still around. In fact, because of his work, he has increased the amount of information we have on corals and the reproductive strategies they have in Singapore. So very much like, Miss Carrie Bradshaw, who knows all about sex, He's not here today, but I told him I'm doing this. So Dr. James Guest, he knows all about sex, and he's really not afraid to talk about it. So we know that around the world, most corals are what you call broadcasters. So they release eggs and sperm into the water, and they participate in something called synchronous mass spawning. Being sessile animals, they don't move. The best way for them to achieve maximum reproductive capability is to release eggs at the same time. So synchronous mass spawning is a very polite term for, a big, huge invertebrate orgy that goes on every year in our waters. And before his work started, little was known about the reproductive patterns of corals on our local reef. The reason being, mass spawning was thought to be a characteristic of coral reefs that are higher in latitude or lower in latitude, not in the equatorial region. Because we don't have very distinct seasons, people predicted that, we don't have mass spawning. But because of the work that he has done, we found that we do have a season a year where corals spawn, and in Singapore it coincides typically with the March-April full moon. So over the years we've been trying very hard to predict it, and there are certain strategies. We go out before the spawning, we will break a couple of pieces of coral. Really, it's small pieces, not that harmful, but we can actually check whether the eggs are developing over time. But now with almost good certainty we can say that the next spawning will happen probably towards the end of the March full moon or early April. And for the past few years, it's always coincided with the Easter weekend. So we've been out over Easter, as people are finding Easter eggs, we are actually looking at eggs, come up in the water. So it's really a magical experience. So we have about 35 species observed spawning in Singapore. And spawning occurs over a period of a few days. In Singapore, it starts about 4 days after the full moon. It lasts for about 3 days. And on any one night, we can get up to 12 species spawning at the same time. It's really a magical sight. I've been there, I think 6 out of the 8 times. And every time it's just amazing. It's like first time going to the water, watching them spawn. So there are divers out there, it's going to happen again next year. We're trying to get more volunteers involved to help us document where the corals are spawning. So we need people to go out to look, to document what's happening in our waters. So, but a lot of people ask, so what triggers spawning? We don't really know all the details, but there's enough information now to show that there is sea temperature variations in Singapore to act as a cue for spawning. There's a change in temperature after the northeast monsoon. So about February, March, our temperature changes from about 28, 29 degrees, goes up to about 30, 31, and that kind of coincides with the spawning cycle. And it's really important in Singapore's context to understand coral reproduction, because the knowledge we have can be used in rehabilitation efforts. We're all aware that we don't have enough space, we are losing a lot of our reefs, and one of the best ways to look at preserving what we have is through rehabilitation. So some of the work that James is doing, collecting coral eggs, larvae, they can be harvested, you can rear them in nurseries, and when they're old enough, you can outplant them to enhance the population. So this leads quite nicely into the next area I want to talk to, which is coral reef restoration. It is an area that the Marine Bio Lab has been working on since 2005, and basically we're trying to answer the question, if we build it, will they come? So my supervisor, Prof. Chow, he had this project looking at what they call reef enhancement units. So we build these fiberglass structures, we put them out on the reef, and we see, do corals come? And true enough, corals do come. And what we have found over the past few years is we have a lot of larvae in the water. They spawn every year. We are not short of coral larvae. We're not short of propagules. What we are short of is space for them to settle. So we have lots of larvae in the water. They have nowhere to settle. So if we provide them with substrate, they will come. So if we can take this information now and move it forward to management, how do we ensure that we can keep our coral population? Now we're trying to look at ways to, like what Jim says, building with nature. So we know that a lot of our southern islands are full of embankments, revetments made of granite. Now, can we then creatively use these structures to enhance the coral population? So we went out to survey some of the reefs, and this will be a typical granite seawall. Newly set up, you've got a couple of corals, but what we have found is over time, if they are situated in the right environment where there's good current, where there's good water flow, the larvae will come, they will settle. Over time, they will start growing, and give it about 8-10 years, you won't even recognize there is rocks below, because they can literally cover entire rock faces. So if you situate this in the right place, you work with the engineers, you work with the civil engineers, and you design these areas that have the right characteristic, right depth, enough profile, gentle profile, corals will come back. And not just hard corals, you can even have things like gorgonians coming back. So this is an area, in fact you go to some parts of Semakau, you will see this in the subtidal area in the rock wall that you saw just now, circling Semakau. You will see this gorgonians growing in the lower parts of the reef. So you can create natural coral reef area in man-made environments. We can build with nature, and we can build reef communities that are as diverse as this. So when we did a survey, we are recording about 70% hard coral cover. That is as good as any of our best reefs in Singapore. You go to Raffles Lighthouse, you go to Pulau Pawai, Pulau Senang, we're getting about 65-70%. So an area like this that can develop to that, that's quite amazing. At least, we think it's quite amazing. So biodiversity. I know I'm corny, I can't help it. I have to say, I learned it from Dr. Tan, because, he's king of corn. Right, so if you look at this picture, it's quite impressive, because this is about a 2-meter square, and you look at the number of corals that are growing there. So you just do a little preliminary count, there's over 10 species in that small area. So if you go to, say, a reef like in Malaysia, you'll find large areas of one kind. in a small area here, we have many of in a small area. So, but the problem we have is, instead of having a lot of many species, we have very little of many species. But what does that mean to Singapore? What does this biodiversity actually mean? So if you look at, we did a paper in 2009 with this person who's doing his PhD in the US now, Dunaway. There are about 57 hard coral genera in Singapore, 255 species. So in terms of genera, 84% of what's in the region. Okay, and if you look at species, we have about 50% of what's supposed to be within the region. Doesn't sound that impressive, 50%, but then if you look at the hard coral area we have in Singapore, we have about 0.02% of all the reef area that there is in the region. We have 50% of the hard coral species, and that is pretty amazing. But of course, we can't take that for granted because our species hang on a little thread. This particular one here, we haven't seen it in Singapore waters for ages. 2005, we found one colony. It grew from about half a meter, about 1.5 meters. Last year, there was a massive coral bleaching event. James says this fella died. So we had this species, disappeared, came back, died again. So our species is in a flux. So we can't take it for granted that we have good diversity, because it doesn't mean that this diversity is going to stay unless we do something to preserve the diversity. So I'm going to move very quickly to the last slide. This is an amazing find that we had recently. So that is Lim Swee Ching. We can now call him Bob, because he is really the true SpongeBob of Singapore. So this is him, Connie. So this is him studying the recently rediscovered Neptune's cup sponge. This is an amazing find in Singapore because, according to Swee Ching, this Neptune's cup was first described in Singapore in 1821, 3 years after Raffles arrived. The Europeans loved it. They collected this in large numbers. They go big to about maybe 1.5, 2 meters. Collected, shipped out to Europe. The last record in Singapore was 1907. So it was considered locally extinct for 1 century. Swee Ching has been looking for this for the past few years. He has done countless dives all over Singapore. So, but the thing is, you never give up because you never know what you'll find. And this year, we found this fellow. So this is the first ever in situ record of a Neptune cup sponge underwater, and he's looking at it now. So no one has ever done this. So it's this kind of discoveries that we have that makes the work that we do really valuable, because you never give up. You never know what you're going to find. Our waters are pretty amazing, and I'll take this to the last slide to talk about coral conservation. My boss, Professor Chow, said this, and I think this is really important for people who are working in diversity. For corals, at least, our corals have not given up. I mean, a lot of people tell us, why do you study coral reefs? There's nothing left. It's so damaged. It's so, destroyed. Why do you study? So Prof says, the corals have not given up. Then why should we give up? So with that, I hope, you can take this message to your schools, to your people, saying that we never give up because you never know what you're going to find out there. Bye. Okay.
Thank you, Karen, for a very, very inspiring talk.
Thank you, Karen. That was a very insightful and informative talk. And there was another call for volunteers to document the mass spawning next year. And now we are swimming upshore from the deep seas to the mangroves. Next up, Hui Ping is coming to present on the Sungei Buloh Master Plan. It is a very well-known wetland reserve to all of us, but what some of us may not know is that actually some exciting changes waiting to take place.
Hui Ping is from NTU. She did her honours year project with the very famous Professor John Young. So she's a prodigy of Professor John Young. She joined NParks, and she's currently working at Sungei Buloh as a Senior Conservation Officer. Hui Ping, please.
Hello. Hello everyone, my name is Hui Ping. Okay, today I'm supposed to be presenting on the master plan. I guess a lot of you have heard of the master plan, but exactly what is it about, not everyone knows. So, the title is actually this. Okay, to start with, just to give everyone an idea where exactly Sungei Buloh is, we are actually at the northwestern part of Singapore, and then we are actually situated alongside with all the farms, and actually it's somewhere near Lim Chu Kang there. Okay, so since 1993, Sungei Buloh has managed to win the hearts of many, many Singaporeans, and then we have slowly grown our we are slowly grown to become a wetland of international standing. In fact, we are the first ASEAN Heritage Park in Singapore, and we are also a member of the EAAFP, which is the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, because of the migratory birds. So every year, large flocks of migratory birds will fly down to Sungei Buloh, and that actually attracted a lot of people to come down to visit us. So looking at this visitorship, we have an average of about 100K every year. In fact, last year we hit about 120K. That's actually a large number. And most of them are actually local families and students, and we also have foreigners coming in. And our peak is actually during the June and December holidays. This is when huge flocks of people come in together, like the birds. They come in and then they will just basically they'll come in big groups. So we realized that there is a need to have a control on this number of people, because we don't know whether if they are creating any negative human impact on the environment itself. So as you can see, Sungei Buloh is about 130 hectares big, and with such a huge number of people coming in, something must be done. So basically we look into this area, this 31 hectare. We're thinking of making use of this big area to actually act as a buffer for the increasing number of visitors. So to let everyone have an idea about what this area is, this is actually our Kranji Nature Trail, so-called Kranji Nature Trail. It's about 2.2 km long. For those who know a bit about history, this area used to be a battle site where the Japanese actually swam across from Malaysia and they landed over here. At the moment, this area is just left to be rustic, left to be rugged, and everything just as usual. And this area itself, if you walk in from here, you can actually see a transition, a change from from grassland to secondary forest, coastal to mangroves. And we realized that it's actually a very good place for people to learn more about the different habitats. So for those who want to come into Sungei Buloh, you can actually take a bus 925. Sorry, a bit of publicity. 925. And then you have to walk in all the way. Okay, so we are thinking of developing this area so that you don't really have to walk in all the way, but you can actually start your trip from this area. So the moment you step in, that's where your trip starts. So we plan to zone it into in a way that this area will be focused more on conservation. It will be a conservation call, and then this will be more on recreation. So basically, this will be where the high activity area will be. So moving on, we will be zoning these areas into 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see this area is actually Sungei Buloh Wetland Reserve itself. Within this Sungei Buloh, we have zone 2, 3, and 4. Basically, 2 and 3 is for higher level visitors. Mainly, these are visitors who actually have a certain level of knowledge on the wildlife in Sungei Buloh, and they want to learn more or they want to experience more. They can come into this area, but I have to say that it will have to be a controlled access. So, yes, basically first come, first serve. So, and then for zone 4, it will be restricted. So this area will be only for conservation purposes, and basically not many people, in fact, I think it is out of bound. And then zone 1 is more of interactive. This is an area whereby we will have a lot of activities and programs integrated so that we can accommodate for the increasing number of visitorship. This is how KNT look like right now. Okay, so basically what we want to do is we want to use this area as a buffer zone for screaming kids. So basically, when kids come in, they will be making a hell of a noise. So this area will be an area for them to release all their energy before they slowly walk in and enjoy the nature, you see. So basically, if we zoom into KNT itself, Kranji Nature Trail, it can be broken down into 3 areas. The first one will be learning. The second one will be more hands-on and close-up experiencing. And then the third one will be more on conservation. Okay, KNT will also be renamed into Sungei Buloh Wetland Park in future. So it will no longer be KNT. Actually, the reason why we are doing this is we want to have some connection with Sungei Buloh, so that when people come into, you know when people come to KNT, they'll be wondering, where the hell is KNT, right? So now we're thinking of changing its name to SBWP, Sungei Buloh Wetland Park, so that people can actually find a connection with Sungei Buloh itself. They wouldn't feel like, oh, I cannot go into Sungei Buloh Wetland Reserve anymore. I'm losing out on what I actually can see inside. But that's not true. We are trying to offer them an alternative space to experience the same thing. Okay, this is actually where we will start. It's actually like a introductory gateway to the wetland itself. So basically, when people arrive, they can just drop off at the bus stop over here and just walk in. This will be our new car park and our new visitor service center. Okay, going into our visitor service center, you can look that we actually have amenities like classrooms. These are for teachers to conduct classes. It's more like a indoor setting for learning. In fact, we actually have programs for the teachers as well. Actually, this visitor center is supposed to look like a flying bird. To me, it actually looks like a crocodile or a mottled lizard. Actually, it's up to everyone's imagination. It's supposed to be the head and the wings and the tail or something like that. So from there, after they are done, okay, after they are done, you can actually proceed to the main trail. The main trail itself, because this is supposed to be the artist's impression, so So the main trail itself, because we understand that in this trail there is also a very rich biodiversity, so we try to minimize any negative impact. So there isn't much development to this area. The only portion that we are developing is only this trail, and we're going to add a few lookup points. So this is actually a new trail that we will be adding. This is more to showcase to the visitors on our coastal areas. And then basically when visitors they come in through this area, they can choose whether to walk into the forest or they can choose to walk along the coast. So they can actually have a view of a different habitats. So once they are finished, they can actually walk down and look at mangroves. Also, we try to make it wheelchair friendly. So these are all the proposed wheelchair friendly routes. Basically, it's not just for wheelchairs. Also, we want to encourage families to bring their little kids out so they can just push their parents along. The last one is our Research and Education Center, which is short form REC. This area will focus more on research, and I guess the researchers will be excited because we have researcher lodge for the researchers, and we have a lab for them too. So basically, they can stay overnight there and do their research. And then there will also be a knowledge center. This knowledge center will be something like a library with all the information that we'll need. So basically, this is more for researchers. So 3 chairs for researchers. I think that's about it. This is another artist's impression. Okay. Okay, so basically, at a personal level, Sungei Buloh Master Plan aims to engage visitors through through the many activities and amenities and facilities to let them to have a better understanding of the wetlands. At a broader level, we wish to bring together local and foreign communities, schools, and experts, so that to create a more vibrant culture of learning. I guess this is my last slide. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So basically, for Buloh itself, what we are trying to do is we want to make sure that not a single person is left out just because we make it like a control or assess. So don't worry, even if you can't go into the Sungei Buloh wetland itself, you still have this area to explore, and we make it a point that you can learn as much things as when you are inside the reserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei Ting. I think all of our favorite ideas, actually the workrooms and accommodations for scientists that will be provided in the future. And we are now moving on to the next patch of mangrove, the Kranji mud flats. But here we are going to talk about a serious problem that's brewing over there. Other than the albatross and dugongs we saw on Mrs. Siva's slide this morning, the horseshoe crabs are also victims of killer trash.
Now, Vanita is a secondary school teacher. She has been volunteering for the Nature Society for 5 years now. She started off with the Horseshoe Crab project, but has since moved on to other projects as well. So without further ado, let us welcome Vanita.
Hello. Okay. Hi everyone, let me introduce myself. I'm Vanita. I've been a volunteer with Nature Society for the past 5 years, and I'm the second last speaker for today. Okay, let me start by introducing you to one of Earth's most beautiful creatures. Oh, where's the sound? And there you go. These are the horseshoe crabs of Kranji mud flats. Unlike what the name suggests, the horseshoe crabs are not really crabs. In fact, they are more closely related to spiders and scorpions. I was going to show you this photograph of a thunder crab and a horseshoe crab, but I found out that RMBR has specimens here. So I thank RMBR for this. Now the smaller one is the mangrove horseshoe crab that we see at Mandai Mangroves, and the larger one is the coastal horseshoe crab. Both of these are found in Singapore. This, on the other hand, is a crab. What's different from the horseshoe crab is you put a finger on this thing and it will claw you. Horseshoe crabs don't. Alright, they are harmless actually. They don't contain any stings or poison, so they don't harm us at all. Okay, horseshoe crabs, they molt more frequently when they are younger. They grow up to 30% larger in size with every molt. They are, of course, obviously softer right after a molt, so they are easily predated upon, but that's part of life. They eat worms, or rather anything soft that they find as they move on the ground. And through our recent tracking studies, we also realized that they have special taste buds for fish food from the kelongs of Lim Chu Kang around the area. Okay, their blood is blue, and they possess really primitive antibodies called amoebocytes. Now these things actually coagulate when they come in contact with endotoxins. So pharmaceutical companies have used this phenomenon to test their products for the sterility of the products. So this picture that you see here is how they harvest the horseshoe crab blood. They bend the horseshoe crab and then they inject a needle right straight through the heart and they drain the blood. So what you see in the bottles is really their blood. It's blue. Alright, there are only 4 living species of horseshoe crabs on Earth. And like I mentioned earlier, the ones we have in Singapore are the mangrove horseshoe crabs and the coastal horseshoe crabs. So what is the plight of these horseshoe crabs around the world? Well, they are almost going to be endangered to extinct. Okay, so what made them reach such a dire state? Well, first of all, it's pollution. Now, the number of drift nets and fishing lines that we see along the coastlines trap the horseshoe crabs. And they have, horseshoe crabs have very sharp edges, so once they get trapped inside these fishing nets, they can't come out. This is Dr. Sue's legs. Now the problem with horseshoe crabs being trapped is that they don't get to eat. Horseshoe crabs are only able to feed when they are on the move on the ground. So if they are stuck in such a situation, they don't get to eat. They are overturned, exposed to extreme heat, they dry up and they die. Or because they are exposed on the softer side, the shorebirds come and eat them, they get predated upon and they die. And then once in a while we end up with these kind of dead horseshoe crab. What you see there, those arrows are actually pointing to eggs. This horseshoe crab was a female horseshoe crab that had eggs, which was not laid. And I think all of us can agree that if there's one thing that animals must do before they die, is that they must make more of themselves. And this animal didn't. Alright, okay, drift nets harms the adult horseshoe crabs. The smaller ones can still swim through and they still survive. If the area is polluted, the horseshoe crabs can still move out of the place and find cleaner waters to stay in. The biggest threat to horseshoe crabs is actually the loss of habitat. So what happens is, for example, if it's land reclamation, the entire area is wiped out. So horseshoe crabs, of all life stages, all life cycles of the horseshoe crab, from eggs to larvae to juveniles to adults, they all get wiped out within an instant. They just disappear. I think along with all other marine animals as well. So NSS advocates the protection of these mudflats because we see this as a very good area for conservation studies. We feel that this area is very precious because I think not many places in Singapore where you can actually study nature at its very own habitat. It's a mangrove habitat. You actually find a lot of animals there and you can study the interdependency of these animals within this venue itself. We also want to encourage public to be interested in nature activities, so we get people to go down once a month to record data on the gender, the sizes, the number of juveniles. And these volunteers come from all walks of life, from very young kids to adults who are quite old and quite young. So all walks of life. In fact, when I first went there and I realized that I saw primary school kids there, I was very touched because the primary school kids, they walk in the mud and then they say, "Ee," you know. And then after a while, they enjoy getting dirty in the mud. They pick out all the horseshoe crabs, they go back there and then they record the data. So I think this kind of experience when they are at such a young age actually instills in them some conservation values. Alright, so we also rescue and free horseshoe crabs that have been caught in fishing lines. And we have simple training programs that allow us to train the new volunteers on different aspects of being part of the horseshoe crab rescue team. Alright, so this is one of the troughs that we have where we caught horseshoe crabs. And then after we are done with them, we release them back into the wild. And this is one of our volunteers actually cutting off the nylon threads from the fishing nets. It's really sad because as the horseshoe crabs go along the ground and then they eat the fishing nets because they think it's food. And then we see these horseshoe crabs and we try to get the fishing nets out of them. They eat them, right? So we got to pull the string out. So the horseshoe crabs are in pain and then they move their legs out and it's bad. Sometimes we realize that it's stuck in the mouth and it's also coiled up in the legs and it's just all over the place and it's a mess. Okay, our future directions, we have started on the electronic tracking of horseshoe crabs. So we have been studying them to see whether they have any homing instincts. So we took some horseshoe crabs from the Kranji mudflats and then we went far out into the kelongs and we dropped them there. And then we took some from Kranji mudflats and we went all the way to Lim Chu Kang jetty and we dropped them there and then we checked to see whether they went back. They didn't. And we think that maybe it's because they really enjoyed the fish food from the kelongs. perhaps, but we've not, well, you will hear about the results in the NSS conference in October, so do watch out for that. More recently, we are also studying the mating patterns. So a team of us have been going down to check about their spawning sites, where they are spawning. Then we've been counting the number of eggs. We've been counting the number of eggs that we found on certain places. And once we have more conclusive results, we will publicize them as well. And we want to continue to educate the public. So you see kids as young as primary school, and that is not even primary school yet. All of them do get interested once they realize that it is fun to do nature work, it is interesting to do nature work, and they believe in the need to do nature work, and then I think all things will fall into place very easily. Okay, for more information, you can go on to these places. Then if you would like to help us with the volunteer work, okay, you can email Dr. Su, who is, hi, or Yang, hi. Just give me a second. We are looking for volunteers for our project next year. We are doing a nationwide consensus survey on horseshoe crab, so that is going to need a lot of people because we're going island-wide to collect the data. The last time we did this was in 2009, so it's time for us to do another survey again, so that is next year. So please do let either of them know if you're interested. So yeah, primary school kids and secondary school kids of all walks of life are interested in this. I just want to share just a little bit about how I got into this. In 2006, I was visiting the Nature Society booth during the Clean and Green Week, and then I saw the horseshoe crab. So I started on this project because I got interested in the horseshoe crab project. But I think as a nature enthusiast, once you get involved in one project, you don't just stop there. So I went on with Ria's team seagrass, I went on to bird watching. So I think there is a lot of interest that you will gather from starting to get involved in nature conservation. So do pass this interest or encourage your friends to participate in nature activities, because when you believe in the need for nature activities, then I think everything will fall into place. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Now our next talk, our last talk for today, is about Mandai Mangrove. And Mandai Mangrove holds a very special spot in many of our hearts. It's a great place for nature excursions, for research projects. But with the return of the Malaysian Railway to Singapore, the fate of Mandai Mangrove is still unknown. So the next talk will highlight the various threats faced by the habitat and also to offer some insights to how to protect it. So for those of you out there who hold the fate of Mandai Mangroves in your hands, this is definitely the talk to listen to.
Dr. Dan Fries has a PhD in coastal geomorphology from Cambridge and is currently working with the Singapore Delft Water Alliance's Mangrove Project.
Okay, thanks. Wow, that just ruined my surprise title change. That you all saw that. Thanks. Thanks for lasting so long. Yeah, I'm following the theme of the conference, right? I want to tell you a little story about Mandai Mangrove. It's a very small patch of mangrove, but actually this story is applicable to every patch of mangrove in Singapore. But we just use this as a case study. And as you said, it's a very important piece of mangrove. And how long is it going to be here for? So this is where Mandai is. It's northwest Singapore. The causeway is nestled in between some industrial parks and the railway. It's about 17 or 18 hectares. And for such a small patch, it has some really diverse parts. It has an extensive mudflat with some rare seagrass species. There's some sandy mangroves, some back mangroves. And this small patch of mangrove is providing some really important ecosystem services. It's performing a coastal defense function for incoming waves. It's a nursery for fish species. It's exporting nutrients into the coastal zone. So this small patch of mangrove has a disproportionate role in the coastal zone. And apart from the ecosystem services, there's so much research that is, people in this room have made their careers on this patch of mangrove. But this is a really important legacy which we sometimes don't talk about. But there have been decades of research. This is a really important part of why I think Mandai is really important to conserve. But like a lot of mangroves in Southeast Asia and especially in Singapore, it's under threat. In the 70s, we built the Kranji Reservoir, and that disconnected the mangrove in the coastal zone from upstream habitats. So the main issue with this dam was that it stopped sediment coming from upstream into the coastal zone. And sediment is really important because that's what mangroves use to build up. But the construction of the causeway has also caused some issues with changing current patterns, and we can see evidence of erosion in Mandai. And then obviously the removal of the railway, there's a real fear of encroachment and development into the Mandai mangrove. I'm just going to talk about point number one, and the reason I'm interested in this, I have an interest in sea level rise and how coastal ecosystems can adapt under climate change. And it really comes to this point of sediment. Sediment is crucial. Without sediment, you can't build up. If you cannot build up, the sea level is still rising. Your mangroves are going to be drowned out. That's because mangroves, they're pretty tolerant, but even they can only tolerate so much inundation and tidal flooding. And this is what this graph shows. So we have sea level rise and surface elevation change. If your surface is rising, wow, somebody doesn't like sea level rise. So if your surface rises at a rate which is greater than the sea level rise, your mangrove is going to look a lot better than my drawing, but it will look relatively healthy. It's not going to be threatened by sea level rise. It's going to be threatened by other things, I'm sure. But if your surface maybe moves up by 3 millimeters a year, but sea level rise is 5 millimeters a year, you have that deficit. And then your mangrove will carry on for a while, but it's going to soon reach a threshold where it just breaks apart, and then you get from mangroves into bare mudflats. So, sorry, this is a Facebook photo, that's a bit better. So, we want to know what is happening to the surface, if it's going to keep up with sea level rise. And the first thing to do is actually figure out where the surface is right now. So this is work by Rick and Wei Kit. Give a wave. There's somewhere, you better be here. Okay. And basically, they have been mapping the whole surface of this mangrove. So this instrument fires a laser onto somebody smiling happy who's holding a prism. That laser bounces back, and with that information, we can work out the exact position and elevation of that particular point to a few millimeters. Now, do that a few thousand times. It's fun, huh? Yeah. And you can make these sorts of maps. So this is an elevation model. This is with all the trees, stripped off. And we can start to get an idea of all the different zones of the mangrove. And this is a very high resolution map. And to our knowledge, this sort of method hasn't been published. So this is quite new, especially for Singapore. And then what Rick is about to embark on is he is going to take the position of every single tree in that mangrove. He doesn't know how hard it's going to be yet. I haven't told him that bit. He's going to be mapping every species, the DBH, the health. We can start to get some really good relationships on vegetation and elevation and mortality. And so that gives us a good base map for elevation and a good base map for vegetation. But as I said, that surface is moving. I'm not a crab taxonomist, as you can tell. Huh? So that elevation map is not static; it's moving, and due to all these processes. So we have the sediment depositing, we have accretion, we have subsidence. So we need to measure these as well to make our elevation model dynamic. And we've started to do this in Singapore. We basically drill a rod in Mandai. It's about 14 meters deep into the bedrock. And on that we stick an instrument we call the surface elevation table. And it's basically an arm with some pins. And if the surface changes, the pins move. and we measure how much those pins move. So we can again get surface elevation change to a millimeter or two. This is us drilling in these rods. It was fun. And they go down to about 14, 15, 16 meters in some places. We have 8 in Mandai, 8 in Sungei Buloh. And then this is taking the measurements. And we take these measurements every 3 to 6 months for as long as we can. 3 years, a decade. We need really good long-term data. And this is low tech, and it's cheap, and it's repeatable, and so we should be putting more of these out. It's just a manpower issue. The great thing about this instrument is that it's standardized. It's been used for about 15 years by some folks in the US Geological Survey. There are hundreds of them all over the world, but they're mostly in the US, Australia, and Europe. In Asia, there are 2 in Singapore, and there's 1 operational in Indonesia, and that's it. So we're really on the map, and a lot of people from around the world are interested in what we're doing because we can start to feed our data. We fill a gap, and we can feed it into this global network and start answering some really big questions. And this is what the data we're going to be getting out of it. So we have our sea level predictions, whatever they may be, and at the next Biodiversity Symposium, I'll be able to actually give you some proper data on this. If the surface elevation is below our sea level predictions, then we have, again, our drowning mangrove. But if we can measure it and it's like this, then we can say at least they're not vulnerable to sea level rise. So this is the sort of data we will be getting in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But this sort of research and wetland research in general cannot be done by one type of scientist. It's all about interdisciplinary research. So we have our model. We have Rick's tree distribution data. We have inundation tolerance measurements for these different species. We have our geographical surface elevation change data, and then we have what the smart climate scientists come up with in their models. And we need to put all of that together to work out if this particular patch is vulnerable or not. You haven't rung a bell yet. Wow, okay. I practiced this, it was like 12 minutes. Okay. So, in my summary slide, I hope in a brief introduction, kind of showed you the importance of Mandai from an ecosystem service point of view, but also kind of a more cultural and historical and scientific point of view. Thank you. What we're doing is assessing the vulnerability of this mangrove patch to sea level rise and understanding some of the processes underlying that vulnerability. And we need that sort of process knowledge in order to then take that information to MParks and say, to manage this patch of mangrove or to rehabilitate it, you need to do this, 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 and this. And we can't give that information until we know if it's vulnerable to sea level rise or not, if it's vulnerable to erosion by changes in current patterns. And this is the sales pitch part. Give us some money, and we will put this in the whole of Singapore. It's cheap, and it's repeatable, and some of the surveying is labor intensive. That's what students are for. I'll stop now then. So this is something that can be easily rolled out throughout the rest of Singapore and the region. Okay. I'd like to acknowledge all these people, MParks and SCWA, and all these people who have done mangrove research from our lab. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So now we would like to invite all our speakers for this session to come on stage on the red hot seats. So those with questions, can you get your questions ready? Can you move on to the mics that we have? Is there anybody who would like to start first? Any questions from the audience? No questions? Okay.
My question is for YK about the Semakau. Sounds really, really cool. I was just wondering, because you're getting all the marine biodiversity data together, is that
Semakau.
Hello. Yeah. About the plans of Semakau, I'm not really in a position to really predict what's going to happen to that patch. But the main reason of collecting that data is, yes, to look at what is there, because we see it's quite unique compared to other intertidal patches, because there's a huge different types of ecosystems there. That's why that really attracted our interest in the first place. And there is the landfill part on the other side, on the sea that was encircled. That was, of course, destroyed. We also collected data from that side too, so it's good for comparison purposes as well. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I mean, it's that I don't know how common around the world these kind of landfill sites are, and if you're looking at something that's right next to it, presumably as they continue to fill it up, are they paying attention to what's happening to the landfill? Like, is it impacting the areas around it? You know, presumably it's important to know that if this is going to be used by Singapore extensively and they're going to build more of the marina in other areas of the world, you want to know that it's not reaching out into areas like that close by. I think it's
Yeah, with regards to the concern of leaching, they actually have barriers. In fact, like 3 different types of barriers to prevent that from happening. Of course. Of course. Leaching-wise, there wasn't any incident so far, but there was an oil spill incident along that shore. It actually recovered quite well. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from the floor?
My question is directed to Waikiki as well. Okay, I'm particularly interested regarding the Pulau Semakau. Okay, I brought my students there. I'm a school teacher. I'm interested to know why is there such a rich ecosystem, and why is it not in other islands, in the southern islands? Yeah, is there a special reason regarding this? My second question is regarding the Sungei Buloh. I understand there's a master plan. For the Kranji Trail, is it already started? So when is it going to start, and how does it benefit school groups? Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm first. Why is there such a biodiversity there? Actually, this kind of survey, quite comprehensive ones, haven't really been done in Singapore before on the intertidal shores. So in terms of numbers, we can't really compare, but it's really rich if you just look at relative area of the island. The reasons why there are so many partially is because of the really diverse ecosystems. You have many pockets of different types of habitats which allow for different types of animals and organisms to actually thrive really well over there. Also, we have to look at a surrounding area around Semakau. It's not just what Semakau can provide. The offshore reefs surrounding Semakau actually provides, nutrients. They also serve as barriers from strong waves and currents. So that plays a role too. Exactly how the factors play, we don't know. That can be potentially future study. Yeah.
With regards to the master plan, construction at KNT hasn't started yet. It will probably start next year, early next year, and end by early 2014. And with regards to how you can benefit the students, right? Basically, for us, we are actually actively engaging opinions and suggestions from public and from schools. And in fact, we also engage advisors from teachers as to how we can come up with certain programs or to have certain amenities or facilities which can help to trigger the students' learning, basically. So yeah.
Questions? Rostan?
I'm with the Department of Biology and Science. I must say I am a die-hard botanist, so I know little about animals. I had a question for Karen. Because I'm very interested in your topic, sex in the sea. I'm very impressed by your report of mass spawning of eggs, and I suppose you also will have a mass spawning of sperms. Otherwise, you have many, many virgin births. Am I right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have mass spawning of eggs and mass spawning of sperms of 2 or 3 species, are there any cases of hybrid that result in this kind of a natural phenomena among the corals?
Okay, to answer that, maybe I didn't really elaborate on it. All the little pink bundles that you saw, they're actually bundles of eggs and sperm. Most species will produce eggs and sperm together as a bundle, and there will be millions of eggs and sperm within that bundle. They go to the surface, the surrounding tissue dissociates, and the eggs and bundles are released into the water column, and then that's when there's cross-fertilization. Some species only produce eggs, some species only produce sperm, but most of them will produce them as bundles. There's probably a chance of cross-fertilization, but from aquarium experiments that's been done, whenever there's self-fertilization, whenever there's self-fertilization, the larvae don't tend to survive. So what we have seen is many of them will, if you use eggs and sperm from one colony, you will see fertilization, but it will die off very fast. So, but because you have so many individuals of a particular species spawning, there's a good chance of cross-fertilization. So those bundles are actually millions and millions of eggs and sperm. And, yeah, they're tiny.
Okay, thank you. Because in plant kingdom, the flowering plant, they also release mass sperms in pollens, and they just flow over all the flowers. Thank you.
Zian just reminded me to mention they're also hybrids, so you might get some hybrids, especially if the species are very closely related to each other. You might get hybrids, and that's why you see a great diversity of something that looks like another one but is genetically slightly different.
So just a question for Dan. If someone gets his wish and we build a bridge and demolish the causeway, and it sort of flows through, is that going to be, do you know if it's going to be good or bad for Mandai Mangroves?
A really good question, and it's not easy actually to return it to how it was. Not that the mangrove is now adapted to these conditions, but actually making such a big change could be even worse than it was. I mean, that's something for people to model and to try and predict. But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not advocating getting rid of the causeway. But there are other management solutions you can do, which are probably a little bit more politically viable as well. Okay. I can't, because I charge this to MParks by the hour if I start giving that sort of advice. Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
Sorry, if you don't mind if I ask another question. That one, I'm not too sure whether it's directed to the first speaker. Last year, when I watched the video regarding the official video of the Year of the International Biodiversity, it does release data saying that 50% of our by 2050, 100% of our coral reef may get extinct. I don't know whether the data is correct. My question is there any studies to study the effect of our coral reef and how badly affected will our Singapore coral reef be? How extensive will it be affected by the global warming? Thanks.
Thank you for that question. I'm very embarrassed to tell you that I haven't seen that video, so I'm not sure what it actually said. But I mean, definitely, if you look at statistics all around the world, you'll see reefs at risk. Coral reefs all around the world are at risk. In fact, within Southeast Asia, it's of all the reef regions in the world, Southeast Asia is at the highest risk. From not just from climate change, which is something that's in the distance, but most of the risk is coming from immediate impacts, anthropogenic impacts, from coastal development, from pollution. So these are the immediate impacts. Of course, you've got climate change hanging above all of this. How much impact will climate change have? It all depends on how we are managing our reefs here. So in Singapore's context, we have two issues. One is we have very little reef left, so we need to try to conserve what we have. How well we can conserve it and how well these adapt to the changing environment will then allow it to respond to climate change. And of course, we're also trying to target climate change at the same time. So it's a difficult issue, I think. But one thing we have learned for our coral reefs is they are really, really resilient. I mean, we have reefs growing in areas that you wouldn't think corals can survive. If you look at literature, they'll say corals only survive in clear waters when we have very little pollution. But our reefs are surviving right next to heavily industrialized areas. So we have very resilient corals, and I think that resilience is very important. And there are some studies looking at this resilience. What we really need to find out is how much do we really have, how much can we lose before the question of sustainability is really an important issue. And I think there are studies going on now. NParks is quite heavily involved in projects like that to look at what's our threshold level. So yeah, it is a big issue, and I think something that we need to focus a lot more on. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Any?
Yeah, hi, it's me again. I'd like to help address the very first question, and I think part of the second question. It's been weighing on my mind. The first question was essentially, why are you doing this thing? And I think writ large, it's not just for Pulau Semakau, but the question is, why are we doing all these surveys right now, right? So comprehensive marine biodiversity survey, Semakau survey, why are we doing all this data collection? And it's because Singapore is very development centric. So we do have planning agencies. We have one very good one, URA. And when they are planning for development, they get all the agencies together and they say, so tell me, why do you want this piece of land for what you're doing? And what we have to do as a conservation agency is that we have to get all the data we can to tell them that we want to conserve this area. It is good for Singapore's heritage because we have what's cool, what's new, what's rare, and what's important for us and our generations after us. And it did not happen in the 1970s and in the 1980s because we didn't have scientists like you contributing to conservation agencies like us, so that we could tell the other agencies, hey, this place is really nice, please don't touch it. Which is why we saw a lot of development happening in nice places. And Chek Jawa, for example, was out of sheer blind luck. We found a nice place, we managed to get thousands of people down, and their advocacy actually helped conserve that area. Right now, we are going in a stepwise manner, get the data, because policymakers love data. So tell me what's cool. They say, this is really cool. What do you have to back your assumption up? Well, we have that many species. How many are rare? How many are endangered? This is perfect for you. Very good PR for the government. And then the government will say, well, good, we can look at it twice. And this is what we are doing for Semakau. Semakau, the landfill, NEA is not here to back me up, but I think it's supposed to be filled up by 2050. That's when they'll start thinking about what to do with Semakau. By that time, if we have great data on what's there, what's cool, what's rare, what's important for our generation, our children, our children's children, then it'll be great. Then at least we have another arrow in our quiver to help protect Semakau. Now the second question for the school teacher lady about why outside of Semakau there aren't other sites. My simple recommendation is look out for this lady in front, Ria Tan, follow her. You will have no idea how amazing the rest of the sites are. Just follow her out. You have to wake up at 4 a.m. But it's so I'll bring your kids, bring your school children, and it's not just Semakau, it's all over the place. Yeah, thanks.
Do we have a few more questions? Yes?
Hi, I have a question for Karen. Given that our coral reefs have so much biodiversity, is there any leisure diving happening there? And if there is it, do you think it's beneficial or detrimental to the coral reef health?
Thank you. There's actually leisure diving. divers in general like to dive in clear waters. Very, very few divers, really those who really have to love the reef environment in Singapore will dive in Singapore for leisure. But I'm glad to say that there are actually quite a large number. Hantu bloggers, for example, they go out very regularly and they dive at Pulau Hantu. Reason being, we have quite a few offshore islands, but because we have so much industry in our offshore islands, there are very few areas that you can access publicly without need of a permit. So some of us who work in the Marine Bio Lab or in other agencies, we got the benefit of being able to dive in some of the restricted areas with all the permits. But for most leisure divers, Pulau Hantu will be one of the areas you can dive, and it is really amazing. You just got to get used to the idea that the area is not clear waters. I mean, it's not what we don't have that makes the place, worth going or not. It's what we have. So even though you don't have clear waters, we have a lot of biodiversity in our waters. So when the divers realize that, it becomes a big treasure, I think. I've dived many places around the world, well, not really around the world, around the region, and after every dive trip, when I come back, I tend to appreciate our reefs a lot more because of the diversity we have. In many areas, you have to dive in a large area to see the equivalent amount of diversity. So to me, that's an amazing thing. So I tend to take all these diving trips overseas as a validation of what we have and how valuable the diversity we have. So yeah, if you want to go diving, Pulau Hantu will be one of the places. Sisters Island is the other public island. Currents there are very strong. You have to really check the tide to go at the right time. Besides that, St. John's is another place that you can go. Again, many of these places, because of the way our islands are situated, some areas have very strong currents. So Pulau Hantu, I think, would be the place that would be most accessible to most people at most times. And if you really want to get involved, go check out Hantu bloggers. They have trips, they have guided trips. So if you really want to go out and learn something as a leisure diver, join the Hantu bloggers, because they will show you what's out there, and you'll learn to appreciate at least Pulau Hantu. But it's a good example of the diversity we have in all the other reefs in Singapore.
Thanks, Karen. Yes, Siti?
Hello, my name is Siti. I'm from NUS. I have a question for Jonathan. It's really great that we're doing this Marine Comprehensive Biodiversity Survey. But I was just wondering if you could share on your plans for disseminating the information that you collect from this survey.
I think a lot of the information that we have collected from the surveys are already quite widely published on the blogs that Ria herself has been doing. We have also many dialogues coming up with the volunteers and with the public as well. We have our websites and MParks websites, official websites, and we encourage everyone who have been on our surveys to spread the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I was just thinking in terms of say a more, formal report, or maybe like a book on Singapore's marine biodiversity or something like that.
Yeah, it's in our plans to have a book on the Comprehensive Marine Biodiversity Survey at the end of the survey. So this book will be compiling the events from the planning of the survey, the conceptualization of the survey, all the way to the results that we have. Okay. So we will have a book, we have reports as well, and these will all be available to the public.
That's excellent. Because I just want to open a can of worms here. So we have been talking, Lena Chan mentioned earlier about how, we should be sharing, the research community should be sharing all our data with government bodies so that we can use these scientific findings in government decision and policy making. But at the same time, earlier in the freshwater session, it was brought up that we aren't able to get data as easily from government bodies. Now my question is, if it is indeed from government bodies which are supposed to serve the Singaporean people, and it's used by using taxpayers' money, why is it that we can't get this information as easily? It's not directed at any of you in general. I'm just wondering why, we aren't able to get this data as easily. I've been trying to get rainfall and temperature data from NEA for the longest time. They just ignore my emails, even when I was working with NParks, which is ridiculous. So I'm just how are we supposed to get this data? It's supposed to be public information. They're using taxpayers' money, but we're not getting any of this. So I'm just wondering if maybe I'm not using the right words or pulling the right strings. or showing enough flash? I don't know. What does it take?
Thank you, Siti. I think the relevant agencies will take this question back and work among themselves. With that, we come to the end of the marine session.
We had a very, very great session, and let's put our hands together for our 6 speakers. Thank you. So I'll now hand the mic back to Siva for the closing remarks.
Well, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the chairs as well. You could have extended the session, but that was such a wonderful shutdown. Didn't wanna. Nandini is very young, but she's already very experienced, it seems. Okay, so for closing remarks, well, we gathered here to exchange information between the community. So, Jeffrey Lowe keeps coming out and complaining, right? He always does that at Symposium. Oh, constructive criticism. So, the thing is, many of the things he suggested or asked about are the things we need to do between the symposia. And we can't forget the kind of questions that were asked. The other thing about the lack of data, you can get certain data from NEA, but you have to pay for it. And then the protestation of a single individual has to be compiled and directed at someone who could perhaps bring about a difference. There are a lot of questions that this symposium raised just from talking amongst us. And although there are some suggestions that people will respond from government, how are you going to hear from them? Are they going to make an announcement in the papers? How are they going to get to us? So all of you registered, hopefully, except for some great gate crashers. And if you're gate crashing, you can just register now. It's okay. And we have your emails. So I'll send an email out to say, okay, what were burning questions that you felt were not answered? And there are quite a number of us. And we'll see what we can do about identifying individuals whom we can approach about some of these issues. And I'm not speaking on behalf of MPARKS at this point. I'm reverting back to my representative of the community. Because it's good, we got together, we exchanged ideas, and then questions were asked. Can we do anything about those questions? Let's see what we can do. Now, second thing is many people saw posters out there and heard speakers in here and wanted to know about the institutions or the individuals. You heard a lot of calls for volunteers as well. How are you going to remember all of this? The WordPress page that we use is a permanent page. It's being managed by Kenneth Pinto here. Publicly identify him so he can't run. And so he will actually put up, we're collecting the PowerPoints and the PDFs, and then we'll provide the links for the speakers who can share their data or their talk information, and we'll indicate it over there. Secondly, this isn't the last of gatherings. There will be some more. Some may be more technical. The Nature Society of Singapore has a conference in October where they are discussing critical issues, and we will send that to you as an email. The coral sex guy is the one I met in the corridor who said that he wants to have a meeting for marine biologists who are doing technical work, and that will also be published to you. If you want to follow up, if you want to keep track of what's happening in Singapore, you heard about following RIA out at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m., visiting those islands out there, then the place to go to is Wild Singapore. So we'll send all of this to you. But there'll be one thing I'll be sending to you, which is a link to a form. I love Google Forms. You registered with it. and that form will ask you about the questions that you have. Okay? And it will also ask you about feedback about this symposium. This was crafted in 6 weeks. Imagine what we could do if we had 6 months to prepare. Yeah, Ria's complaining because we never have time. So that feedback that we send to you, which usually ends up getting ignored, please write. And if a speaker, a talk, or a poster, or a person you met impressed you in some way, can you please write a remark? And I'll direct it to the relevant person. Remember how Adrian Lu talked about getting a thank you card, and then they'll another card, and then take it home secretly and read it again. It's very motivating for the speakers, poster presenters to get that. I was actually very impressed by many of the speakers today, and we are very pleased that we saw so many young people chairing the sessions very capably. So, in closing, I'd like to thank, where's Wei Ling? Wei Ling and Linda, can you just stand up? They work within civil service. And they work tirelessly. In me in NUS, when I want to get the minister, I just write to him. They have to write a white paper first. So they actually did a lot of work to put this together. And you won't see the last of Linda. She is going to invite public feedback for MBSAP as well. So I thank you all for being here. It's been very encouraging to see all of you, and hope you have a good Sunday ahead of you. Thank you, everyone.